Hello, everyone. My name is Carl Goldman, and I'm thrilled to be here today in San Diego. Happy to be at the BlueTech Week with the Maritime Alliance again. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Kellen, and everyone else. I'm pleased to have Sarah Giltonen, Jeff de la Beaujardinière, and Clarissa Anderson on my panel. I'm going to do a quick presentation myself wearing a presenter hat, and then I'll go into moderating as well. Our panel is called Gathering Data, It All Starts Here, and we're going to have a range of discussion topics, and there's probably more of a focus on what do you do with all that data once you get it here in terms of, and I think we're going to have a good connection to further panels that are in the day later. Well, I'm going to kick it off. My program that I'm in is called the Integrated Ocean Observing System, and interestingly enough, Adele's presentation talked about innovation ecosystems, and I often hear folks talk about the IUSE ecosystem. So I'm going to give you a little snapshot of the program, and then I'm going to finish with a highlight of an industry study that we did to understand a part of the blue economy. So let me go there. So IUSE is supposed to be one integrated ocean observing system that integrates data from all federal agencies within the US. We have 11 non-federal geographic regions that are charged with bringing in data from other sources that are not federal and then coordinating that with federal systems as well. So the Southern California Coastal Ocean Observing System is the region that covers San Diego, and Clarissa is the incoming, soon-to-be director of SCUS. So the reason that construct is interesting is the community-level engagement that you all have in San Diego. SCUS is a piece of working with the community across all of Southern California to meet the needs of the public. So this construct of non-federal partners at the regional scale that nest into this national federal system is the way IUSE is supposed to work. It's a team sport, just like technology clusters. Collaborating and communicating with industry, academia, citizens, data users, data providers is a key to making it work. So the bubbles on this graph are we have an interagency committee, we have a federal advisory committee, we have an IUSE association that represents all of the non-federal regions. They can advocate and talk and educate on the Hill. And then we've got our office in DC, which coordinates at a national and international level. Within the IUSE regions, they gather data, they provide data access, they do modeling and predicting, they provide products and services, and do community outreach and education. So it's producing and integrating and communicating. Tools of the trade, we've seen lots of this week already. There's sensors on animals, we have sensors on small autonomous vehicles, we have satellite data, we have different agencies that gather data for different purposes, and we work to bring it all together. And that is basically a big data concept. And the trick with the big data is bringing the data together, making it available and usable, and then finding how to splice that into the small bits that people need to make decisions. We've just put this webpage out yesterday, which is a guide to how to contribute data. If you have data and you want to get it into the system, we've got a user guide on our website now. I'm going to flip through these slides real quick. Why do we gather data? Here are some reasons. Public good, supporting hurricane response, supporting public health. You've got images on there from a camera that's mounted on a buoy that takes pictures of the microscopic organisms. You've got folks launching environmental sample processors that are basically a chemist in a can that can take samples in the environment and then bring back a result automatically. We do public good support in terms of coastal hazards and flooding. We support economic development in terms of the shellfish industry and providing new sources of data and information that help them with their operations and making decisions day to day. Our program is also supposed to work within the U.S. I showed you that map earlier, but we're supposed to work with the Global Ocean Observing System and our international partnerships through the Global Group on Earth Observations as well. In our program, we try to count and capture the progress we make, many different ways to create metrics. We count glider days because there's so many glider operators. We try to see how much effort is there out there. We have a radar network. We have animal telemetry projects, as I mentioned, and that bottom number is what we're trying to do, is make it work as one system. So, as I mentioned, I wanted to cover the study that we released in February of 2016. We went about looking at, within the ocean sector, a key component of the ocean enterprise, as we defined it, was ocean measurement, observing, and forecasting. So we wanted to look at what are the private and nonprofit companies that work in that space as either providers or intermediaries. We would have loved to gotten to the end users. That's more complicated, more costly to study that, harder to tease out the results. So we started with an initial study on the providers and intermediaries. And those two terms are meant to mean folks that provide data, either by building sensors, putting sensors in the water, servicing those sensors, designing autonomous vehicles. So those are provider companies. Intermediaries are companies who do something with the data to add value and then turn it over and sell it to someone else for another use, or provide it for another use. So what we did is we contacted anyone in the US that we knew that worked with companies in these sectors, and we gathered a list. We gathered a list of 700 companies. We went that down to 410, and this map on the upper left is where those companies are located within the United States. We conducted an online survey of all those companies. 159 of them responded, and the results of their answers to the survey were that the annual revenue of those companies related to the ocean enterprise is estimated to be $7 billion a year. That's a significantly bigger number than we expected. It's equivalent to the NFL's annual revenues, not each team, but the actual league itself. It's equivalent to the green card industry's annual revenues. So the ocean enterprise is an important part of the blue economy, and we were happy to make this groundbreaking study. There's 17 different sectors there listed. You see the breakdown of intermediaries versus providers. We suspect we were better at capturing the provider companies than the intermediaries because they tend to have been around longer and maybe bigger companies. The intermediaries, sometimes smaller, more nimble, maybe harder to identify. So one of the things we want to do is do another study down the road, and we just put on our website a list of the companies that responded to the survey, and we've put an opt-in opportunity there. So the URL is there. If you're a company and you're not on this page now and you want to be in the next round of the study, click on the link and send us a note. The companies are listed by alphabetical order on tabs, and we'd be happy to have more companies in the next round of the next study. I don't have a date for that. We plan to do it maybe in a couple of years. We've got to secure funding and then do the planning to do that. So that's a quick summary of my program in the Ocean Enterprise Study. I encourage you to go look at it, and I'll be happy to answer questions at the end. We're going to move on to our next presenter, Clarissa Anderson. Why don't you come on up?
Thanks, it's great to be here. As Carl mentioned, I am just moving into this position. I've only been in beautiful San Diego 1 month. I moved down here from Santa Cruz. I've spent my life bopping up and down the coast of California, grew up in LA, went to school in Berkeley, lived in San Francisco. You can imagine where I fall politically. Berkeley, okay, I'm just going to put that out there. And then came to Santa Barbara, followed by Santa Cruz, and here I am in San Diego. I don't know that there's anywhere else that I want to go after this. So here I am to represent SCOOS, and we just had a great overview of the regional associations and what we represent in ocean observing. So I'll move on. Do I have the control here?
Yeah, that green.
I didn't see it before. Okay.
Just the green. That's
All right, perfect. So you already saw this map, and I don't need to give too much more background besides what Carl just mentioned, but we are the Southern California region. So we are roughly Point Conception south to the border of Mexico. And we've got a lot of assets, a lot of capabilities. We sustain observations from a number of platforms, high-frequency radar for surface currents. Some don't go far too back in time, like ocean acidification, but the long-standing Cal Coffee time series is one that we also in part support in the near shore. We have a lot of integration with the Coastal Data Integration Program, the CDIP wave buoys, Cal Coffee. I already mentioned spray gliders. We've got lines on Cal Coffee that run periodically, and all the way down to the automated shore stations and manual shore stations that Carl just gave an overview on in terms of things like harmful algal bloom monitoring, as well as temperature, salinity, and other baseline time series that are crucial for understanding the environment. We have focused themes that sort of come down from IUCE, such as climate variability and change, coastal hazards, ecosystem fisheries and water quality, and marine operations. What you'll see down on the bottom part of this slide is the It's primarily a NASA-funded project, but we have really leveraged a lot of the resources in California to create this mapping system for harmful algal blooms, and this was incredibly pertinent. I mean, this is 10 years of R&D, but when the Dungeness fishery crashed this last year, suddenly there was a huge need to have such a modeling capability in place to predict domoic acid, which is the toxin that caused that crash. And so this is my project that I spent many years working on, and it's been an incredible collaboration, both in California and even across the country, but also transatlantic collaboration, and it was great to see some of the highlights from Dr. O'Connor's work, because we've been connecting in a large way with the Marine Institute, developed something similar for Irish waters to really protect aquaculture. And so I'm going to fast forward to this story map. These are static images pulled from a GIS story map that really highlight how this sort of harmful algal bloom story that we encountered last year with this incredibly massive, devastating bloom has real implications for decision making and how it connects to the environment. So this Pacific warm anomaly, which was a really big and unpredicted event, was sloshing up the coast and really did create the problem that we had, which was a bloom that spanned from Santa Barbara all the way to Alaska, some of the highest toxins that we've ever seen in the marine environment for this particular organism. And there were huge ecosystem impacts, animal strandings of all kinds. We even had 30 fin whales strand in Alaska that were, at least in some way, stranding because of domoic acid toxicosis. And so with this sort of event comes together, we have to collaborate with every kind of ocean observing platform and capability that we have to put these stories together. And we can look back at long time series, such as those collected at Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute in collaboration with SENCUS, another regional association. And these sorts of time series really tell us what do the anomalies of temperature and nutrients, which are primarily important for something like a harmful algal bloom, what does that mean? And how can we look at those anomalies in relation to something like a large abrupt temperature change or a large El Nino event? And these two did combine to produce this harmful algal bloom. And so this is the modeling that I already mentioned. We had these, they're not only nowcasts, but 3-day forecasts that do give an early warning for aquaculture, for marine mammal stranding networks to really respond. We see a really nice lead time in the statistics. We just finished a skill assessment, and it looks like, you know, we're doing quite well in predicting these blooms. The SCOOS region, as well as SENCUS and NANUS, have come together to host workshops related to the specific warm anomaly and other anomalies, as well as ENSO variability and predictability. And so we're synthesizing West Coast data. This story map is a partnership with the West Coast Ocean Data Partnership and Data Portal, and we service a lot of data. So the idea here is for anyone who needs to know something at the ecosystem level can pull together every capability that we have and create an interesting story, whether that relates to ocean acidification or any other kind of fishery application too. We're working very closely with fisheries in the Southwest Fisheries Science Center. And that's it. I'm going to end with the end of this story map and just sit down for the next speaker. We'll take questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Clarissa. And Sarah's going to present from BOEM and I believe cover the West Coast Ocean Portal.
All right. Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name again is Sarah Giltinan. I'm short, and I work for the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management in the Pacific region here in Southern California. I sit in our renewable energy section, but today I'm going to take off my BOEM hat and I'm going to put on my West Coast Ocean Data Portal hat and present to you on behalf of that portal effort. Data. We have a lot of ocean data, actually, and it's collected by respected institutions like the IUCE Network, agencies like BOEM and NOAA, private organizations, research institutions. And one challenge that is faced by people who need to use these data is actually finding it in this sea of data, pun intended. People like ocean managers and project proponents. And not only that, but finding these data in a format that's usable and actually useful. And on the flip side of that, if you're a person who has a lot of data and you want to get it out there so that it's visible and people can use it, then perhaps a platform that allows you to do that would be useful. So enter regional ocean data portals, in this case, the West Coast Ocean Data Portal. This was created to serve as a gateway to connect ocean data in this region. And as of Monday, when I prepared this presentation, we had 752 registered data resources in the portal, and it's categorized in a number of ways. So as you've heard, the IUS network and its regional associations do an incredible job of serving really valuable data and data products. And what we've done here is take that to a West Coast-wide scale. So what do people on this coast really need to know about the oceans and coasts, and how can we serve those data in a way that's meaningful? And I have to admit some cowardice here. I was too nervous about technical difficulties to do a live demo. So I'm going to show you here some screenshots, but I hope it entices you to check out our portal website. Just a few notes on the benefits that a portal provides. It's an organized and searchable catalog of information. And so this makes data more discoverable and available to inform business decisions, management, and planning. Since the portal is a gateway, it doesn't actually house the data. It just links to those data providers and does things like harvest web services. And this really helps in making sure that the data you see through the portal are up to date. And having a portal really forces coordination among all these different data providers, producers, and users. Coordination is a good thing. It builds efficiencies, and it helps us to identify gaps in data and how to fill them. The portal itself is the result of tremendous collaboration among data producers and users here in the West Coast region, and I'll touch more on that later. So if you click on the Discover tab on the portal website, you get to the data catalog, and it offers a number of ways to browse through data if you maybe aren't sure exactly what you're looking for, or to do a specific search if you are sure what you're looking for. You can search by location, and here I've opened up the categories menu, and that, I'll show the rest of that menu, categorizes the data holdings in a number of ways, so hopefully it's easy to find what you may need. If you click on any one of those data sets, then you get some basic information, a description of the data resource. You get the publication date, which is important, and the source information, the producer of the data, who publishes it, and an actual email address, which can be critical. And you also get any constraints on that data. On the right side, you get a menu of different ways to actually access the data. You can download it, you can get it through web services, and in some cases, the portal doesn't actually provide access to the data itself. It just gives you enough information to know that the data exists, and this can be for some good reasons. It can be to protect proprietary or confidential information or culturally sensitive information, but what it does let you know is that these data exist and gives you the name of a person to contact for more information. Many of the data sets have this visualize link on the right side, and if you click on that, it takes you into the mapping platform of the portal. This probably looks kind of similar to other online mapping platforms. You got your basic functions, search, zoom, clicking layers on and off, different types of base maps, that sort of thing. And you can also search for data from within this viewing platform, and that'll limit your search to just those that you can visualize immediately in the viewer. So here I'm showing vessel density from NOAA from 2013 as an example. Okay, and here I've added a few more potentially interesting data sets: submarine cables, aids to navigation, artificial reefs, on top of that vessel density map. Going back to the data catalog, you can search by issues as well. There's only 4 in the portal for now. They've been developed in response to requests from external groups for priority issues, but that's another way. The real data geeks can search by format. And we also have a list of sources, and you can see it's an extensive list there, and certainly features the IUS groups. little bit more on what you get from a portal. These are curated data sets, so they're organized and meaningful for ocean users and decision makers. And the portal team has put a lot of work into synthesizing data products. So something that we've heard, particularly from high-level decision makers, ocean managers, is having access to lots of data is great, but it takes time, and they don't always have that time to make sense of it, to inform their decisions. And so synthesized data products are super useful. So one example of this that the portal team embarked upon was taking information about fishery closure areas, both commercial and recreational. Some of these data, they come from a variety of sources, and some are non-spatial. They're written as lats and longs in Federal Register notices. So the portal team spatialized all the data and put them in one data set with these 5 restriction categories that you see here. So now it's really easy to visualize these all in one place and then go from there as far as decision making. And the portal team really emphasized the growth of a human network of data producers and users. And this is arguably the most valuable part of the portal, because human connections will endure any changes in data and technology. We have a really diverse group that are on the portal team and part of the data network. The folks you see here, everyone from agencies, tribal governments, NGOs, industry, et cetera. It's a really important collaboration. A human network makes it easy for organizations that might not otherwise have a relationship or might even have a contentious relationship to communicate and to rally around data. I'm not going to dwell on this too much because Clarissa already showed it, but we also feature the story map on changing ocean conditions that she showed, and I just want to put in a plug, features a video with Clarissa. We have this connected on our portal website as well, and we also developed a story map on marine renewable energy as an example of changing ocean conditions, or excuse me, changing ocean uses here on the West Coast. These stories are under review, but they should be available very soon on the portal website. And I just want to end on this map of some potentially interesting data items for the San Diego area, some seafloor sediment types and sediment thickness. What can the portal do for you here in San Diego if you're part of the blue economy or blue tech industry? If you're a data producer and you want to have your data sets included in the portal and have them be more discoverable, then please contact the portal team. If you're someone who can use these data to inform your business or management decisions, then please take a look at the catalog, see if it can help. These will probably be coarse scale data because of the regional nature of the portal, but it gives a really good starting point and again provides you that connection to the actual data producer. And if you're simply interested in ocean data and this portal effort and you'd like to be part of this great collaboration, then please get in touch with us and join us. Thank you very much. I'll end with data of a different sort. Again, I'm Sarah Giltonen, and I am a member of the Outreach Working Group for the portal. And here I've provided the contact information for the portal team co-chairs, and they have much, much more information to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And now we will have Jeff de la Beaujadière, who's the data architect for NOAA and chair of the Environmental Data Management Committee.
Button. Okay, thank you for having me. And Carl, I want to commend you on your excellent pronunciation. That's good. Rare. So I have just a few slides at a very high level just to hopefully stimulate discussion and thought. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail. Some of you may have heard me talk yesterday in detail about the NOAA Big Data Project and so forth. But I want to tell you about a little bit about NOAA ocean data and public-private opportunities. So this green button, there, okay. So as you presumably know, NOAA produces significant amounts of ocean data. There's a list on the left there of some of them: sea surface temperature, height, wave height, bathymetry, ocean color, temperature, salinity, ocean acidification, really key item right now, I think. Coastal water level is also key with climate change, coral bleaching, fisheries catch, et cetera. There's tons and tons of data. The volume is great. The diversity is huge. And then we also have many observing systems. Carl told us about IUS, and we've heard about one of the regional associations. They're running a lot of in situ networks like buoys and gliders. Well, I guess it's sort of gliders and radars on the shore. Then we also have obviously satellites and ships that go out, tide gauges, human observers, ships, so forth. And of course, numerical models. So we produce a ton of data, and it would be great to be able to leverage that in a better fashion. The good news is that our data are meant to be open to all and well curated, and I think we've been doing a very good job on that. We established in late 2013 a catalog, which is, I guess, similar to the West Coast Ocean Data Portal in the sense of having metadata about data sets and then letting you get to the data. It attempts to be a comprehensive inventory. It's required, in fact, by White House policy to be comprehensive. It's not quite there, but we're trying to get everything in. And then we've been focusing on trying to get new online services or more standardized online services, things like OpenDAP and OGC services and Esri type services, so that it's easy to get to the data or even to the subset of the data you want. Metadata is a big push for us. In fact, we are just voting at the end of this month, my committee, on a new version of our data documentation directive requiring ISO metadata and a plan for transition to the new ISO metadata standard, which has space for a lot of detailed information, including data quality information, which is critical. And then, of course, archiving. That's the building of our headquarters in the photo there of the National Centers for Environmental Information, the new group that brought together National Oceanographic Data Center, Climatic Data Center, and Geophysical Data Center. So we have a ton of data, well curated. I believe this is actually the largest collection of oceanographic data in the world is curated by NCEI. And then underlying all this, we have open data policies, both at the White House level and the NOAA level, and then more detailed directives that my committee is in charge of, and we're trying to work on increasing standardization. So I think we're good in terms of knowing what we should be doing. We haven't done all the right things to all of the data yet, but that's good. We're getting there. But there are still some challenges in the ocean, especially the complexity and the expense of data gathering, running ships. We constantly would love to be able to have more days at sea with our NOAA vessels than we actually can do. So we have to balance, where do we go and when can we go? The incompleteness of coverage, just because of obviously the vastness of the ocean and the fact that a lot of the data that you're gathering, you have to sort of go there, and you can't go next to the place that you can't go to the other places by choosing one. You know what I mean? Wide variety of data types. The data volumes are huge, obviously. And then you've got to try to integrate data from multiple sources of different types, and that's difficult. And then now I think another challenge is the changing baseline conditions. So, as the planet evolves and the base conditions of the oceans change, then we want to be able to observe those, but then, they could have an effect on our interpretation of results, our ongoing calibration, that kind of thing. Okay, so the thing is, we got all this data, but the users, most of them want answers. They don't want terabytes of floating point data. They'd like to get an answer. They'd like to get one bit sometimes. Should I take my umbrella? Should I permit a building to be built? Should I mitigate flooding here or there? Should I build a seawall? So the key thing here is we really need to support non-expert data users who just need to make a choice and know what to do. Kind of looking at this slide about data and decisions and stuff in a different light today, but anyway. So what are some of the challenges the private sector can help resolve? One is volume. Obviously, we have, the volume question is huge. We have, just storing the data so that it's preserved is difficult, but then getting it out the door with enough bandwidth for people who want to use it is also very difficult. So the volume challenge is big, and I'll tell you about one of the things we're trying to do with that. And then the complexity issue. I mean, the data are very complex. You need experts who understand it, who can help the decision makers come to the decisions. And I couldn't think of anything more complex than the plasma fluid equations to illustrate the complexity, showing why I don't do plasma physics anymore. So one of the ways we're addressing at least the volume question is the NOAA Big Data Project. So I spoke for 30 minutes on this yesterday, and I only have this one slide here, but basic idea is at the bottom we've got NOAA data, we have online services for the data, let you find it and so forth, and we want to copy huge data sets, sometimes not so huge ones, but conceptually mostly huge ones, to one or more of these cloud providers, Amazon, Google, IBM, Microsoft, and Open Commons Consortium, so that on the cloud you can get data analysis capabilities, visualization, data integration capabilities, so that users can use the data remotely. They don't download to their location, they just come to the cloud, they do computing, maybe they get a result back, a map, an answer, a single bit out of all of the data. So we've been working on this as an R&D project. We're in the middle of a 3-year thing and starting to figure out what do we do after that R&D project. If you want more data, look at my slides from yesterday, or more information, sorry. So here's an area, though, where I think the private sector can especially help. You know, on the left-hand side, we've got very complicated science data, oceanobs, model outputs, and then ancillary data, which has to go with that. And then on the right, we've got the non-expert users who just want to make decisions about policies and business. So somewhere in the middle, we need to be able to support those decisions. There's kind of this black box that churns through data and somehow gives you a decision. So what can we do there? I think there are private sector opportunities in filling that box and helping us make the right decisions, because we have so much data and so many critical decisions to make. We need to be able to make them and to justify them. So I can see the private sector helping in things like derived information products that NOAA isn't going to produce itself, data integration, analysis based on very specific locations, you know, my town, my port, my area, analyses that are based on specific use cases, looking at statistics and trends, scenarios, what if, you know, this, what if that, trying to get some probabilities on what might be happening. So I think that decision support box is going to be a really crucial thing, and I'd love to know how we can make that happen. I will just add one more thing, which is traceability. I don't have a slide about this, but it would be great if every one of those decisions based on data, we're able to cite the data that were used to make the decision. So we've started an effort in this area, starting to assign DOIs, digital object identifiers, to our archival data sets so that you can cite them, just like you might cite another paper. And it would be tremendous if we could very clearly back up our decisions, our important policy decisions, with links back to the data to really justify on a scientific basis why we're doing that. So, yep, that's the last slide. I'm just going to leave that one up because I like it. Thank you.
So yeah, there we go. So thank you, panelists, for putting up with my asking you to be very brief, but I did that so that we'd have time for discussion. So I really do hope that we get some questions from the audience here today. I'm sitting at the table since I presented. If you have questions, raise your hand. Do we have someone taking a mic around? So Michael has a mic, and I have a couple questions that I'll ask if no one else does, but I'd prefer for you all to get this going and to ask a question.
My name is Igor Prislin from BMT. I have a question for anybody, probably can contribute. We have a big data, we collect the data and we try to get the value from the data. Rather than just displaying what we have, what is the trend in predictive analytics? What Jeff just mentioned, some non-data user want to go to very specific details to get, do I need my umbrella tomorrow or not? So if we have anomalies like Clarissa showed, do we have capabilities to identify the trend when those anomalies start coming on, rather than just saying, oh, we have a problem now, and then we have to work on it. So can we do some predictive analytics and prevent some bad things, what might happen? I would appreciate if you can say what kind of analytics might be involved and where we should be looking for. Thanks.
try that.
I would say what we can do from the observational side that we're doing now is support time series and climatologies where we can look at anomalies in near real time. In the predictive capability side, it's a little trickier, and certainly we're developing those numerical models, a lot of regional downscaling, really trying to understand what's happening at the local and regional level, but we're not really at the place where we have very good skill for seasonal forecasts. And I'm thinking, you're thinking on those sorts of time scales. We're not talking 3 days out, a week out. We're talking, what is this horizon for this upwelling season? What does this look like in the ocean if we want to know what the impacts from an ENSO event are going to be? And so this is a place where there's an incredible amount of research being invested in right now to improve that skill, improve the data assimilation that will really help those models along. And so that's where a lot of the investment is right now, and I don't know if there are other capabilities that I'm leaving out, but I think what you're really getting at is the modeling framework, and we're trying to implement regional models that are both operational and pre-operational that can tackle all kinds of questions from 4-kilometer models down to the sub-mesoscale.
Yeah, did you want to? You don't have to.
So, yep. On one hand, NOAA is certainly very much engaged in predictive analytics on the weather side, and that's an area that's highly well developed. And so I guess it's an example we can follow. I was just talking to Janet Fredericks about the ocean, the wave models, and how how the best wave model is not necessarily NOAA's wave model. And that was an interesting conversation. I'm sorry, I guess it was Julie Thomas, but that's kind of short-term forecasting, right? The longer term is very difficult. And I feel like on some level we've been engaging in that in the climate realm. We've been doing predictive analytics of what may happen over the very long term. And I think the responses are very compelling, and it would be good if we started to pay more attention to that kind of thing. I'm sure there are other realms we can do that. Carl was pointing out to me that we were discovering new things as part of the big data project, having sent data in. For example, realizing that we could see birds migrating in the data that was meant for precipitation. So there may be hidden in our data the ability to do predictions or analytics on things that we hadn't planned to do. So that'd be very interesting.
Yeah, my name's Guy Knoll. I'm with Esri, and I just wanted to ask to follow up on Jeff's point about the cost of sea time at NOAA. I know NOAA just released a new report for building more ships, I think up to 6 ships, and I'm wondering how their operational, observational capacity and capability could be enhanced by the folks in this room in a public-private partnership sort of way. Is that part of kind of where they want to go with the ship building? Or how are the ships going to be tied to IUCE? There's a lot of different ways that could be done that I don't think NOAA's report really addresses directly.
So I'll try to take that one. I talked to Admiral Score yesterday, and I have to confess I don't know the details of the report yet, and he and I are going to meet up so that when I'm going down to talk to the folks on the Hill about ocean observing writ large, that I've got the story straight. My understanding in general is that we're short on ship days for all of the mission areas within NOAA, so more ship time is going to help with that writ large. And then with regard to the public-private partnership topic, we're always working to improve our ability to do things, and we do that on a regular basis through all of the line offices within NOAA in each of the mission areas, and so that's something my program does try to pay attention to. Everything from, I mean, the explosion in technology that we're seeing is going so fast that the trick is going to be, can we keep up with the programmatic and people decision making as fast as the technologies are growing? And so this is an ever-growing challenged to coordinate and find solutions and efficiencies. And the glider days I put on there are an example of that. That's one technology. There's many other autonomous technologies. We're at least trying to coalesce around communities of practice to find efficiencies and economies of scale wherever possible.
So, ship time is precious and expensive. The vessels themselves are expensive, but also having the people on them to run them. So we are, I think, always wanting to be able to have more ship time than we have. And yes, there's this new fleet plan getting worked on, and we have the NOAA Observing Systems Council, which helps allocate observing requirements among all of the observing systems. In my personal opinion, it would be great if we could take advantage, as much advantage as possible, of every ship trip. Send every vessel out there just sort of bristling with sensors that are always on and measuring everything, because data are cheap, people are expensive by comparison. So let's just, measure, and then ensure those data are automatically sent to the archive and preserved. Maybe principal investigators might want a temporary hold so they can do some research before the data are public, but at least let's get them protected, and let's gather the data and see what's in there, and just, turn on the sensors all the time, and off we go.
Joaquin Hernandez from Plug Sonic platform of the Canary Islands. Just in this sense, last week we hold a meeting in the Canaries around the Atlantos project that perhaps is a European project for the observation of the Atlantic. And one of the ideas that came up was using opportunity vessels for the observation, and try to develop something like a system, the standard system that could be allocated in commercial vessels in a more systematic way than we do now, because in that way we can operate in a much more larger scale, having these standard devices. So if any interest on that, not just there's a project going on around these type of things, working with the shipbuilders in order to incorporate this from the very beginning in the same way that the planes are doing that for the observation of the atmosphere.
Yeah, I agree that that's a good idea. We've got a volunteer observing ship program, and there's some standardized suites of sensors, and the trick is to figure out what's the list of things that we can standardize and maximize, so that we're putting the ships out with bristling capabilities.
Hi, Chris Ward with Xylem. Just a question regarding, we hear a lot of emphasis being put on Arctic activities recently. Is there anything specific or any advice you'd give to private industry on how to best prepare ourselves for what's going to be, more data collected in the Arctic or more challenges in the Arctic?
So my thoughts are my personal programmatic answer from my seat is talk to AUS, which is the Alaska Ocean Observing System, in terms of what do they have in the works for planning in terms of moving into the Arctic. And we've got Molly McCammon, the director of AUS, is now on the cross-agency Arctic Council team. So that helps to find the connective tissue of who's meeting to discuss that very issue and try to engage. And seek out programs that are funding research to look at questions on how we're doing things up there. We've funded a little bit of technology transition on ice freeze-up buoy technologies. And so there's also, I know that Sail Drone is doing work up there in terms of testing an autonomous vehicle in the ice-free areas during the years, during the months where that's possible. So that's just one thought. Anybody else?
You want to tackle it?
It's not perfect.
I don't know what specifically, what.
Additional questions? Carl, go ahead and use your questions.
Okay. So let me pull this up real quick, excuse me. So I was going to ask each of the panelists, so we've seen a lot of examples of observing programs and technologies to gather ocean and coastal data. And in your view, so what are the most important elements of success and/or the most important things we should try to do? So I guess more of that will work. What is that? No.
So elements of success and
And what works in terms of gathering and making the data available?
well, one of the questioners mentioned the idea of the standardized sensor packages. I think that works, and sort of putting them everywhere, because as they're standard, they're cheaper, and we're getting more data. That would be a good thing. And then for me, I've spent many, many years working on standards for data, and I think doing more of that would be good. I'm starting to be a little pessimistic about that, though, because of the heterogeneity of the data, and it's very, I'm not sure that we'll ever get to the place where the data are as standardized as I think they should be. And you know, there's always going to be this heterogeneity just because of the nature of the observing and the fact that we have a bunch of old stuff that we're probably never going to convert. So I'm wondering, now this is speculation, if we could get to a sort of a layer that hides some of that complexity and fixes it for us. Like if you can imagine before Google came along, you know, and other search engines that predated a little, it was hard to find stuff. And obviously the web was new, but people shoveled information. But now you want data, you just kind of go there, and it has dealt with finding what's out there and getting it to you, and has a reasonably sophisticated query syntax. Most people don't use it, but you can actually say, make sure this word's there, make sure that's not that word, quote this phrase, you know, on this site. I mean, there's a whole bunch of operations you can do and really drill down your search. But we don't have anything like that for data, for finding the data. Or we sort of do, but we're nowhere near where we should be. So I'd love to see, that would be an opportunity, I think, this sort of data discovery layer being improved, maybe some kind of brokering layer to actually get the data once you find it.
I'll provide a non-technical answer to that question. Something that made the West Coast Ocean Data Portal very successful is that human-to-human networking and collaboration. As I mentioned in my talk, the human connections endure the changes in policies and technologies and data. So something that the West Coast Ocean Data Network does is meet in person about once a year, and we have conference calls about monthly. And I know that can be hard to do, especially in a region as large as the West Coast, but connecting those data producers and the users, the people that need to make decisions informed by data, is really invaluable, because then we can make sure that the data collected and served are useful, and they're served in a way that's usable, and the users are getting what they need. They can inform the collectors of any gaps in data. So that has been a really important component of the success of the portal.
So I think I would look at two things. One is looking to the past, which is the monitoring that has been the backbone of our observing systems, and not to turn our backs on that. We have so many incredible capabilities now in the modeling and remote sensing world, but we need to be ground truthed, and we need to maintain these observations. And I think that's a place where funding has been sort of dying out over the years, and we need to really make sure that we keep those, every kind of monitoring you can think of, from the physical to the ecosystem level. And the second thing I would say is, one of the places where I think ocean observing and data gathering can really play a huge role is in this new frontier of Earth system modeling, where we bring together everything from the kind of dynamical modeling side, whether that's atmospheric or oceanic, to remote sensing, bring those together and pull together the socioeconomic impacts and look at this in an incredibly holistic manner. And this really is the new frontier in how to do things and how to tackle societal problems, whether that be any kind of a coastal inundation model all the way up to vector-borne diseases in the marine environment. So I think we're going to see much more of a push for this end-to-end integration that can do prediction from the near term all the way out to the seasonal and beyond.
Should I try to?
Carl. One more question over here, and then I think we'll be done for this.
Okay.
I'm Ken Childress with Ocean Aero. We build autonomous marine systems, and in the course of development and building and that kind of stuff, there's a tremendous amount of testing, a tremendous amount of data gathering, and that type of thing that goes on. We collaborate with various sensor companies, data gathering companies, data producing companies, all types of development and design companies, even companies like Esri and others. And so we're kind of, I guess you'd say, on the, the pointy end of the spear there sometimes in terms of getting this data. The question is, and it kind of goes a little bit to the issue of brokering and filling the gaps. There's all this data out there that you guys don't even know about, and we may not even know that you want it. Okay. So the question really simply is, does it bear out to put some time and effort toward creating something that just simply says, hey guys in the industry, this is what we would like to see over the next couple of years. Here's where our planning is going, and this is the kind of data we're looking at, and here's where our gaps are.
So, yes. No, it's true. You raise the idea of data that, at least on the federal side, we don't really know about. It's being gathered by the private sector. We don't have direct access to it, but it sure would be nice, especially because all of it is about the planet that we all live on, and it would be good if, when you felt comfortable with it, we could get access to it. I think there have been sort of limited steps that have happened that kind of touch on some of what you're saying. For example, agencies, when they plan to do data acquisition, are supposed to actually tell the government, data.gov, hey, we have a planned data acquisition, so other agencies don't go and pay for the same kind of acquisition. So that's a little bit of I think they even call it a marketplace, but a little bit of a place where you could come together and find out what you wanted. But, I think it's not the same as knowing about the treasure trove of non-government data that's out there, which I think is what you're referring to. As for gaps, yeah, they're huge. It's hard to even know how to quantize the data gaps.
Yeah, I've got an answer. Did you want to answer too?
I'll go after you.
Okay. So one of the things I put up was a new page that we put on Contribute Your Data, so that we want to make that easier, and so we're finding methods to do that. We're often asking in the regions that are to gather data sources from in their geographies and get the data in, and I'm vexed by the problem of that's not free, the data curator broker role that they might provide, and so I can't tell them they must. If I don't have the resources to tell them that, I can say, I'd like for you to, and then they can see if they can do it. And so one of the challenges within the realm of all of the mission areas that the data can support is who's the market for the data to make a public good out of it versus who can do something with it to turn it into a marketable product for sale. And so that's that blended space that we're in this program. And I am interested in, having done the Ocean Enterprise study, to work with companies to continue this dialogue and figure that out, because sure, if we could tell you, here's the area we're leaning into, my problem is I've got 6 areas we want to lean into, and I don't know how fast we can get to each of the mission areas without resources to dedicate to that specific task or problem. In terms of, I'm talking about, can we signal the plan where we're going to go so you guys can help lean into that issue area? So we have to continue dialogue and use the tools we have for you to contribute data if you're willing to do it. So that's my thought about it.
Yeah, I think, is this one not on? I think I was going to say something similar, because with federal funded research, we were obligated to make this public, and our data are searchable online in a sort of public sense, but does that mean that everybody knows what's out there and how to find it? And so I think in the private sector, there's been a lot more of a push to have these kinds of databases that that at least mine what is public and bring it to the sort of private interest groups and NGOs to do all kinds of interesting work, whether that be conservation or development or whatnot. So I'm thinking along the lines of what Carol said, is that if we can make partnerships with the private sector to bring data in that can benefit the kinds of projects we want to do to serve the public good, that's what I would be most interested in.
So I think we'll end the panel at that point, but that's a great example of collaboration, and we're all about case studies of collaboration. Here's a private company saying, how can we help? How can we provide more information? And you guys are trying to both develop information, gather information. So it's a great place to end a great panel. So let's thank this panel, and then we have 25 minutes, and we'll be back at 11 o'clock for Marine Spatial Planning Fosters Blue Growth.